record now. Yes. Welcome to the second webinar in this series where we're going to talk about spirituality. Today we are with Harry Debretsky and Patti Jo and Amnerak. She's also from 3PGL Inuit. So we're going to be talking along with each other and see what it goes and just follow the flow. Maybe we're going to start with Patti Jo, where she can introduce herself.
How kind. Well, thank you again for inviting me to this visit, Ivalo. It's been a pleasure. Thinking about this journey, I was sharing with my friend Harry. He's my friend, that's just, I always think of Harry as my friend. And we've known each other for a lot of years. And I was sharing with him about the similarities that we have with this 3P concept. Long story short, we were on the same page this morning. Before we even got connected through this meeting, we were sharing ideas that we had together of just having a talk, having a visit about just that, sharing. And with that being said, I will share with you who I am and who I represent and where I come from. My English name is Patti Jo Wawasuk. Wawasuk is a native name. My dad's side of the family, he's Kickapoo, or the correct pronunciation would be Kikapoia. My people, my tribe, we live in the center of the United States, in Kansas. It's in a state of Kansas. However, we're still a sovereign, independent nation within the United States. Of course, we have to, abide by all federal laws, and we're guided by federal laws. And unfortunately, throughout this past 500-600 years of post-colonialism, we had to adapt and give up and still fight for our sovereignty. Even today, you probably see it in a lot of the popular culture of news in the United States, like Oklahoma. The native indigenous people are having a conflict, probably because they have underground that isn't quite governed, or natural resources. There is no specific laws about that. So they're fighting in court to try to put some kind of form and claim again with what's underground in Oklahoma. That's what I think. I always tell people that not much changed in this past 600 years. We're going on 600 years or more with our culture having to have conflict with the United States. The only thing that's changed really are the bullets. So today the bullets come in different forms as laws, policies, courts, and going back and forth like that. That's what I think. So that's one part of my culture, kind of zoning in on the little 10 by 10 square mile Indian reservation where I live, the Kickapoo tribe in Kansas. We are a small community, probably about 600 that live in the same area, and very rural, very close knit. A lot of the type of I guess the conditions that go along with close rural country communities, it still remains the same. We try to get along here and treat each other best that we can. But I myself, I've really taken on the role of the traditional female gender role And I'm proud of that. I know there's a lot of conflict about the different gender roles too, but my tribe is very patriarchal. It's been that way. It's still that way even today. And I'm okay with it, really. I know a lot of folks might argue with that, but I enjoy being a mom. I enjoy taking care of my home. I enjoy providing for my babies and just living life with my babies. And today, really, that's in a nutshell what a lot of my people, just the Kickapoo people, what I witness, what it's really about. Those old traditional ways, we're trying our best to adapt them to survive and thrive in today. So there's, a lot of talk about how you label that, because I always label it as a preservationist. There's a lot of ways that have been orally taught to me from my family or modeled, milieud from my family, that are just kind of values and beliefs and expectations of how to conduct myself, and what's right, and what's going to bring honor and respect and value in such a way where I'm representing not only that last name that belonged to my father. So there's your patriarchal, some of that in there. That last name belonged to my father, and he served in World War II. He was a military, army soldier. And so that alone is a lot to think about. How am I going to keep up that last name and represent that name? How am I going to represent myself as a woman, being a mom, providing for my children, and modeling and milieuding for my daughters and sons, so that hopefully they'll within them instill some of these traditional values? And how am I going to bring honor to in for my tribe? I just told you where I come from, Kickapoo, Kickapoya, and how am I going to represent myself in a good way for my tribe? So also, there's a couple other things. A clan.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about your spirit, how you see spiritual, and then relate that?
Yeah, sure. I have a clan with my name. There's a lot of different ceremonies that go along with that, and a lot of beliefs that go along with it, even within our tribe. There's not one way that is just one way everybody does it, kind of cookie cutter thing. A lot of different families have different ways in the ceremonies. So I guess if you need a kind of a cookie cutter idea, it would be a ceremony, whether that's in our backyard or at a church or at a formal grounds. So anyway, the clan that I have is a wind, which is part of a thunder clan. And there's a lot of and here with my tribe and our neighboring tribe, Caribbean, Potawatomi, that's on my mom's side, they're very matriarchal. So there's a little conflict there too in beliefs, but it's okay, we respect it. On my mom's side, they too have very similar traditional ceremonies and beliefs. So we kind of share together and kind of support one each other. And we always have all these years. There's a lot of Kickapoo and Potawatomi people together. And that's that's me. I'm Kickapoo and Potawatomi, my siblings, a lot of my family. I don't know how it ends up like that. But as far as the spirit and the clan and those ceremonies, Harry, you would kind of understand this. It's almost like a way to connect. It's just a way to connect and a way to apply. And the application process I hear it in the ceremonies when babies get their names with their clans and their families, even today. Like I said, there's a lot of different ceremonies and ways, and they're all beautiful. I love being a part of all that. But when they get their names, that connection, that application, it carries you. That name is like a name, Pamasmakwa, that's my name for my spirit with my clan that carries me throughout my lifetime. And I'll reference the Northern tribes' belief, one of their ceremonies and beliefs. A Northern tribe's belief is that medicine wheel. And the reason why I reference that is because it's very common. Land and resources aren't the only thing that's been taken, extracted from Native American Indians. Medicine wheel, that comes from a Northern tribe, and it represents your mind, your spirit, your body, and your relationships. And they have 4 different colors, the red, black, white, and yellow. And if you look it up, there's a lot of information online about the medicine wheel, and you'll see a circle with those colors. Well, in the English world today, they call it holistic health. So there you go. Land and resources is not the only thing that's been extracted, but it's okay. I mean, I'm sure that way is helping a lot of people. But my point to bringing that up back to the medicine wheel is the best way to give you a description without showing you or getting too detailed into it is that with a person, there's a balance through that connectivity and application. And that spirit part, that white part, representing the pureness of snow, the color of snow that covers Mother Earth. And when that happens during that time, that season, that pure, that's the time where it's making that Mother Earth pure again. So that's the part of the spirit. And Native American Indians, where I come from, I'm not saying it's like this all over, but this is what I believe in. And when I share with you, it's what my dad had taught me. It's what my grandma has taught me. So I'm not saying that this is what all Native Indians believe, because that's another complexity of it all, is that every tribe has their own beliefs in all the areas of the United States. And please know that. And don't cookie cutter one person with everybody. But the connectivity and application part and that pureness, sometimes we need to rely on that piece to have that circle of the medicine wheel, a perfect balance, a perfect circle for our lives. That's the application piece of it. And my name with my clan, the wind, the clouds, the rain, the snow, all those weather aspects or pieces that go along with that clan, the wind and the thunder clan, all those nature activities of that clan goes along with my name. It helps me. When the other areas in my life, maybe my mind, my body, or my relationships are off balance. And that's the best way I can describe how I perceive my perception of what I've experienced throughout my lifetime being part of these ceremonies and how it applies to me today, right now, at this time.
Do either of you two ladies have a question for Patti Jo? Can't hear. You're both muted. Maybe unmute everything.
I am just enjoying listening. So
Oh.
I'm gonna ask if I have some questions. So let's go along. Yeah.
Okay. So Patti Jo and I met about 10 years ago, where I was invited into her community to share, and in that meeting where I went into the school and taught with the school with her and Dr. Diane McMillan, who actually was the one who invited through Patti Jo me to come. Patti Jo was at a stage of evolvement, and so I was at a stage of evolvement. I want you to really understand that, Patti Jo, was this. I was also just growing in my understanding of 3PG, three principles, and for me, not being Indigenous, how do the 3P, Indigenous, spiritual, mystical, I was much more interested in the mystical side of life, connect. And I'm just going to jump forward for a second, but where they connected was I had to be myself. That's where they connected. As long as I was trying to be something, with whether it was 3P, you know what I'm talking about, Ivalo, you know that 3P stuff, or Indian white man who carries a pipe and has two spirit names type of thing. That was part of my evolvement or development. And Patti Jo also went through that, because when we hadn't talked for quite a long time, and we had a really beautiful connection, and we had shared some cedar and different things I had sent to her on her request. But what I saw was that Patti Jo grew not only in her understanding, but equally, perhaps much more equally, her understanding of what it was to be a Kickapoo woman sharing in her community. And she says she loves her work. She is in the addiction field. And I could feel the growth and substance of the woman, the who she had become, not who she was 10 years ago. And so for her, she contributed to my development, and I contributed to her development. And then we arrived again, and we were different people. Yeah, you know, in fact, when Patti Jo wrote something, I wasn't even sure it was Patti Jo, because she wrote that big name there. And I was saying, maybe it's a relative of Patti Jo or something like that, you know, type of thing. And so as a non-Indigenous person, one of the things that came out of our talk was I have been accepted as a white person, accepted in the Native community, not by everyone, please, not by everyone, but by a certain amount of people. And that's what I see happening with the Indigenous people, where they will be accepted as, to go to Ivalo's talk last time, as leaders in certain areas, because portals are open that aren't open for the white, excuse me, I hate that word, white, you know, the other people. No, I don't like that either. Yeah, so the establishment of life type of thing. So I see that because of what it did for me. You see, I went into the Indigenous world, people, and I had an understanding, I had already gone inside because I had been a student of Sydney Banks and I had already gone inside. But I needed a flavor to open up that I wasn't getting from 3P, or and it wasn't 3P, it was Sydney Banks' truth. The truth is uncovered by Sydney Banks. And so the mystical side of life became a normal aspect for me. And when I accepted that, the spirit started to talk to me and started to let me know, guide me. So I didn't have to follow Indigenous teachings because I wasn't Indigenous, but I had to listen to the spirit, and the spirit just guided me. And that's all I did. You don't become a pipe carrier because somebody gives a physical person gives you a title. That is not a pipe, not in my mind. The spirit is the only one that can say you are a pipe carrier. And that's what the spirit did as it shared with me. And I said to the spirit, well, how come I'm not helping more Indigenous people? You know, it's kind of slow going around here. and they said to me directly, you do your best, Harry, and we'll take care of the rest. And as far as I can see, this is a product of that. We've all come together. And ceremony is a beautiful thing. And in the sense that it opens you up to accepting that what you see isn't the world. It's not the world. The world is the Great Spirit is much more beautiful. Yeah. And as you open up and incorporate that in your life, you can go into addiction or schools or whatever. You don't have to tell people you're teaching Indigenous teachings. You're just teaching who you are. And that's what happened for me. And, you know, so Patti Jo, thank you for helping me along the way with your beautiful heart and your beautiful share. Thank you, Ivalo, for the same thing. And Annie, I don't know you as well, but it's the same thing. Yeah. You are helping me to understand, not just the psychological aspects of the three principles, but the mystical, spiritual side that Sid loved. Sid loved the way the Indigenous peoples saw life. Didn't like it, loved it. He saw it as the same way as he was seeing life. Different language, true, but he loved the feeling. He loved it. And one of the things is I wish he was around now when I actually could have something to offer, where before I was just scrambling around and stuff. But the time with Patti Jo was a very big moment in my life. Very, very big.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very big. And it's still a deep memory. And that when you share mystical, spiritual, Indigenous teachings, it stays with you for eternity.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's just a good kind of summary of what I described in a different language. And really, I think that's what it's about sometimes when you're working with others. I'm going to borrow your word, how you described it, who haven't quite evolved. And we were evolving back then, both of us. I know where I had reached my impasse back then was that I had the inability to take all these teachings that I had from my dad. Again, I'm going to repeat this again because I'm opening myself up for a lot of argument out there, especially with other patriarchal tribes. And, you know, there's a lot of restrictions that go along with that. And I'm all right with restrictions. You know, I can humble myself and sit down and not say a word. And I'm all right with that because there's something to that too. In silence, However, I repeat that, I guess in respect of my own culture and the way I understand it, I always fall back on that. I'm sharing what my dad shared with me. That belongs to me because that was between him and me. He shared that for a reason. Or my grandma, she shared all these things for a reason. And when I was first learning about the 3Ps, and Diane McMillan, you mentioned her, she can attest to this. After opening up these books, reading these books, what Sydney Banks had to offer, what Jack Pransky had to offer, and going through 2 years of prevention. We used it in my undergraduate studies for prevention. And I took 2 years of it. I had some kind of insight where there were other people putting in English a lot of the ways to give honor back to kind of pathways that my dad and my grandma had tried to teach me orally. I thought you talk about mystical. I thought the way they were teaching things to me was mystical. I thought I wasn't allowed to share. I should keep those things to myself. And when we opened up these books and I come to an understanding, I remember just slapping that desk and saying, I'm so glad that somebody put all this in English. And it was kind of freeing for me because I didn't come from an oppressed people that had to hide and save and not talk about things and keep it all hush and secret in order to keep surviving in this world. That was my belief. And those impasse moments like that, the inability to fully benefit living life, that's the pure part, similar to how I described how the seasons of snow and winter comes and it's making the earth or your body or your mind or your relationships pure again, that renewal piece. And I really appreciate how you described and paraphrased putting honor, given honor, and that representation of myself for you and I. Back then, all that had to be part of our relationship. And you're right, we were both kind of in an impasse. And I think that's kind of what I understand about this talk today, is just kind of trying our best to put some form where we can take what we have and help other people with that connection, not only with the spirit part or the spirituality part of the 3Ps, but just that concept of, when you succeed in life, make sure that you don't forget the person behind you and make sure that they have a drink, they have something, you're sharing something with them too, kind of thing. Because somehow, some way, your and I relationship back then, Harry, we exchanged that drink together because my impasse was I had no clue how to take all this spirituality piece, and I've read it in English now. How do I put it in the cup and give it to others? that's where I was at. I had no clue, but I enjoy that learning and teaching this past 10 years. And I enjoy being able to help others with that connectivity. And really, that's what I'm hearing from you and your talk. It was several weeks ago when I listened to your video, Ivalo, is that was kind of your desire and your need with your community is helping your community, helping your neighbors. Any thoughts about that, Ivalo? About like that connectivity? Oh, my goodness. My goodness.
I'm sorry.
No, you're having a visitor. You're having a visitor. For some reason, just an impact, some type of impact. That healing, that's healing.
I'm just so happy listening to you. Back then, when I started to have conversation with Harry, and you were talking about rituals and importance of to celebrate and having ceremonies, it somehow it made so much sense to me, because here in Greenland, most Greenlanders are Christians, and I have in many years, for many years ago, I decided to not longer be a member in Christian church, but I, of course, respect their traditions and their rituals. But I saw back then that it's not my kind of form I was interested in. So I've been rootless, or how do I call? I haven't had this sense of having a specific form where I saw myself to being like in a tribe or a clan that you were mentioning. I've been like homeless somewhere in religion, in spirituality, because I didn't have any ceremonies. I didn't have any rituals. So while I was listening to while I was talking with my friend about Harry and the rituals and those things that you have talked about, so I was like, I was hit like this. Yes, that's what I've been missing. I've been missing this kind of spirituality where I'm connected to nature, because my children, they are not baptized. They are just only, but I've given them free where they can choose for themselves when they grow up. I didn't want them to say yes to Christian church because I didn't want to be the one that decides for them. It's their own decision that will be the dominance, or I don't know. It's up to them. I gave them free will. It's not my decision which religion they need to be in. But it doesn't mean that I dislike it, but I just wanted this freedom. So this missing of being celebrating in a specific way, in touch with nature or spirit, or so I have this somewhere in me, that this hunger for renewal or how do I call this, new way of celebrating life and celebrating transitions like that.
Yes. Yes.
So I it's there somewhere that when you are talking that I'm very attracted to, but it's gonna come. It's gonna come in some way, in some form. So I'm not worried, but I just really like also what's going on here in Greenland. Like people are getting tattoos, like Inuit tattoos are coming back. It's like something is waking up again. Something is waking up again. So I think it's a very exciting period, especially also after when Black Lives Matter started, that this decolonization process or mental decolonization started. There have been so much discussion. So I've been following, I've been observing what the discussions people are having about their relationship to the missionary Hans Egel, who came for 300 years ago, and what that statue symbolizes for them. So there are different opinions, but I really like the discussions and the debates. So I'm very happy that it has started. So we can talk about being Inuit or being Christians or being another other kinds of. So I'm just really happy we are talking about this, and it touched me because I hate being hidden. I hate being oppressed. I hate being categorized. So
Right.
this feeling, this needing to be free, to be yourself, that's the
Yes.
most important thing. And if you choose any kind of religions, it's totally fine with me. It's just that nobody is not better than the other. So it's that this
Right.
diversity I really love. So thank you for this, for your explanations.
Yes, you're very welcome. And thank you for trusting us and letting us in such a way where we got to be a part of that insight, that understanding. It's very personal, and you trusted us. And I think that's what a lot of this is about. There's with Harry and I's talk last time, I was explaining to him or trying my best. And that's the thing about this. It's hard to put form around something that is very formless. First of all, I want to say, I like how you said that, oh, it's okay. It'll come. And you bet. That's that pureness. And I took that word from Harry too. He always described it as pure. You know, it's the quieting of the mind. Not only that, you know, and just being in the present moment, just being there, appreciating you, having respect for you, having respect for Harry, having respect for Annie, that connectivity together. I brought a prop because I wanted to share this with Harry. Really, I thought about this because I had this impasse of being able to take all that I had been taught throughout my lifetime with my family, with my dad, and how parallel it seemed to be with all the English that I read from the 3P reading, from Sydney Banks' books. And that was my insight that I had of that overwhelming feeling of emotion of freedom and choice. And we're talking acceptance, and, you know, just really being comfortable with, I'm going to borrow this, what I've heard in my teachings from my teacher. She used to say, in my own skin, just accepting. And that's kind of part of it, I think, is because I can't take you where I never been before. And maybe that impasse that I had of not being able to quite take all what I had of that pure spirit part and that connectivity part, not only with that, what Sydney Banks called and described as mind, universal and individual mind, not only about that, but maybe I had to go through that in order to feel comfortable today with how to share. And I brought a prop because I use this, it's so common, and I brought a mouse. And, you know, when you work in the addiction field and you only have so much time to work with folks, and it's pretty safe to assume that they've lost their connection to that universal mind. They've lost it because they're in the treatment because of choices that they've made, and now they're having consequences because of those choices, and the realization that they're needing help because they're not well. So there's a lot of times that I talk about spirituality throughout the years with folks, and a mouse is a good description to use. So is a cell phone. That's pretty well known also. So if I'm using the mouse and I'm saying that's my cell phone, because a lot of times in the treatment places, they can't use cell phones. So I describe it as a cell phone. And when the cell phone powers down for whatever reason, and again, another analogy, I'll go back to the medicine wheel. My body is powering me down. My relationships are powering me down. My mind, my individual mind, my thoughts are maybe an inability to focus, or butterfly thinking, I call it, because butterflies rest on a clover, then they go to a tree, then they go to a flower, then a blade of grass. Well, anyway, you get the gist. For whatever reason, I'm powering down. And now we're talking about the spiritual part, which you and I both agreed that it's all good. And we want that all good for our children, whatever that means to them. It's all good. So the analogy here is my cell phone's powering down. And the other analogy is there's a wall, there's an outlet there, and that energy is in the wall and outlet. It's there whether I plug in or not. It's always there. So what do I got to do when I'm powered down? I got to plug in. I got to plug in and get powered back up. And again, with that freedom, that permission, that being comfortable with your own skin, you know, and you were a prime example for your community, your family, your people. How powerful was that for the insight that you know, there was no need to apologize. They're just tears. That's part of powering down sometime. And that's the comfort of your own skin is, or my admission to you all that I didn't know how to share all this. I had to go through an impasse, or Harry's admission. I was a white guy with a pipe, hello, in a native world, you know, and being comfortable with that. And that's what it's about. Just acceptance and that realization that exactly how you said it, it's okay. It'll come. I will get plugged in to that energy. And until I get plugged in, you know, just acceptance that I'm a little powered down right now, but it'll come. And I think that's beautiful how you are trusting and willing to share, because I think that might be a part of all this too, when we're trying to take that drink and give it to our kids or give it to our neighbor or our community. We're sharing that together today.
And it's also, again, in the simple things, just like having connection with a flower. It's a ritual or it's a ceremony. It doesn't have to be in a specific way. It's how I connect with the spirit. It's how I connect with the life, It's how I dance with life, or how I make meanings of in my surroundings. So it's in the simple form. It's like appreciating the sky or the clouds or the sun. It's this connection to spirits. It's so big, it's so formless. So I needed some kind of form to celebrate. So because I don't know many people who does that. So it's like I have to create my own. So I'm creating my own, and I have made decisions that it's gonna be on my way. I'm not gonna follow what the others are doing, but I am appelled. I am attracted to the existing ceremonies and rituals that you are mentioning. I love this connection to nature. I love this honoring water, honoring snow. It's the simple things that I really enjoyed, and it reminds me of my grandmother, my deceased grandmother. So she taught me a little, but not enough. But she taught me some. But it's very valuable, even though it's not that much. So
yes,
it's enough.
Yes, it's enough. It's enough.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's not the quantity, it's receptiveness. If you heard what she's pointing towards, you've already got it. And everything with ceremony, you must understand, Ivalo, came from somebody's vision or insight. Somebody in every aspect of every ceremony, it came to them. And that's what you're doing. You're originating from within your own self. That's what I came to. I couldn't follow the others because they kept contradicting themselves anyway, to be honest. It was really, do this, and then they wouldn't do it. Do that. And then you started to see they wanted me to follow them because they wanted me to be there, but they needed their beliefs to be supported. And when you come in fresh at the level that you're coming in, you have to be original. But you do listen, to what, and the feeling that your grandmother talked about, that's instinctive to who you are. That's instinctive to Patti Jo, to Annie. It's instinctive to you. And it's instinctive to me. And that's why I didn't have a problem, because I just said, don't think, just accept. And every time that process just got clearer and clearer, that this is who I naturally am. Excuse me, just a sec. Hello.
I think that.
Oh, good. But I'm on a Zoom call right now, John, but I can't play today.
I just wanted to share that I think that's part of it, that instinct, that feeling, that calmness, and how that is so personal. Okay, we kind of described a little bit earlier about that insight process that Ivalo kind of went through, with that realization of belonging and exactly what type of spirit does that, is that belonging about, that question there. And back to what and how Harry described as that instinct and the feeling. And that also is personal. And I would invite anybody to just keep practicing putting form around what that means for you. Being comfortable in your own skin, of functioning in that type of form for you. Because Ivalo described earlier, for me, it's like in the clouds, that connectivity, the feeling with the clouds, or a flower, something simple. And when she described that, it reminded me of a moment I had at work one time in the past. Stressful. So there was me powering down, and I can feel what that feels like too. And again, I invite you to practice what that means for you too. That powering down feeling for whatever reason, the relationship or your brain or your body or pain or whatever is going on. The noise, I think, is how Sydney Banks described it. So I recognized it, that I was starting to power down. However, I still had a couple hours to go, and people who depended on me with this concept of connection to spirit. And again, how can I take you to someplace I've never been? And I realized that. So I recognize that I'm powering down. How do I get myself to get raised back to that natural, good feeling that Sydney Banks describes? That energy, that connection of that universal mind. And he always said it's just a thought away. So I followed my thought to get back outside of the building. I went outside, and it may sound silly, but even thinking about it now, I can still remember that feeling that I had. I had to just kind of take what I had available. It's a building, not much nature is outside. There's a patio, concrete, not much to look at. But there was this tall blade of grass. It was probably a weed. And it had a straight line to it with a little bit of flower on top. And there were other blades of grass. And I had already done class for about an hour, and I just had my thoughts, just my thoughts. And that blade with the wind, it just looked like it was applauding for me. I could just imagine that grass, that one blade of grass, trying to encourage, to keep going. That was my thought when I quieted my mind and only focused on something simple. Blades of grass and the wind and how it felt, how the sun felt. Taking in the breaths and getting plugged in. I'm trying my best to kind of describe how I understood, how I got plugged back in to that energy that is formless, but it's healing. It's pure. And that is where I'm going to be able to function, where wisdom speaks, where the healing and the goodness and all those good decision making processes for myself, that's where it's going to derive from, in that state. And that's the prevention piece. That's the reason why I had a professor, Dr. McMillan, Diane McMillan. Those were her words. That's the prevention piece. Because as long as I'm functioning in that state with my mind and connected with universal mind together in that state, I'm going to make good decisions, wise decisions, healthy, successful decisions for myself. And I wanted to just share that with you. Does anybody, go ahead, Harry.
Oh, I was muted. Oh. One thing I'd like, which I got from listening to the great spirit Sydney Banks, everything Patti Jo talked about is, of course, 100% dead on. But one thing that meant something to me, besides accessing wisdom, is I will become a better human being. And that means a lot to me, to become a better human being. I like who I am, but I can recognize that there's not, it's not, I have a long way to go. And you can't come to the end of becoming a better human being. And to bring in another aspect, with when Ivalo was talking about, it brought up, how did I make it to where I am now? Not make it like, Sid made it. How did I cared. So what caring and gratitude are the lubricants that will guarantee that you will continue to become a better and better human being. And that is the essence of it. I'm going to read how Sid described it in The Missing Link. The wise medicine men in the native North American culture spoke of the world as one spirit, referring to the creator of all things as the Great Spirit. This was their way of explaining the oneness of life. And then he goes in and brings in what Patti Jo is talking about. Thought is a divine tool that is the link between you and your divine inheritance, and is at the core of all psychological functioning. So he's using a different language. Patti Jo has found her language, her expression through her grandmother, her teachings, and so on. Ivalo will find hers. Annie, the same for you. Find it, what resonates for you. It was very, very interesting for me to enter the Indigenous world, because there was a lot of conflict and confusion. Yet, because I cared, I kept going. That's all. I cared. And was I confused? Yeah, I was. And was I sharing to the best of my ability? Yes, I was. But it wasn't until the tipping point or the defining moment was reached that I really could say, it's all one. We're all here as one big family, enjoying the taste of variety. The beautiful, beautiful, like the Indigenous teachings, love them. Very, very exotic. And the smells, good. And the food, great, And the people, and the babies with the big cheeks sitting on your lap, just breaking your heart. Oh, so trusting, Just because I brought some candy, you would think it wouldn't make any difference, So we're here to share our hearts. And I only can tell you that I have been deeply enriched. I could not be where I am now this magical life that I'm living without the indigenous flavor that was introduced to me, some of which through Patti Jo. So it's really, to all of you, I'm the lucky one. I'm in it, really lucky.
Yeah.
It's a very special world. This mystical Indian, mystical, spiritual, indigenous journey. Very, very, very beautiful. And all you have to do is stop thinking so much and just start to let it. And isn't that what you're doing with 3P too? Stop thinking so much and just let it. And it works. It works. And that's why we do it. Because that's Patti Jo is telling beautiful stories, but it works. And that's why she's doing it. That's why she's grown to become a better human being. Ivalo Annie. It's Harry. Yeah, lucky to be included. Lucky.
I love what Patti Jo said about belonging. I have been there about I have questioned my identity. My father is half Danish and I'm fair. And my mother's darker. So I've been questioning my identity. Am I Danish, Greenlandic, or Indigenous? But after coming to this understanding of Sydney Banks' teachings, I just know who I am. I am before thought. So I don't have to be a certain way. I don't have to be Greenlandic or Danish or Indigenous. I can only be me. I can take the hats if I want to be this part, be with this part, but it's up to me. And I'm belonging because we're one. We're all in this one energy. So I'm belonging. We're all in this one. So, and the one you said about the circle, we have that too in our community. Like our flag, there's a round sun. After I came across with this understanding, I understood the circle. It's an ongoing process. Nothing is still. So we are evolving. Love and understanding. We are just the same of the big universe. So thank you, Patti Jo, Ivalo, and Harry for sharing. Touched me deeply. I got a bit sleepy. This is so calming. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So this might be a good place, Ivalo, to end series 2, and we'll continue with, if you'd like to hear a little more from Patti Jo. We certainly have and we'll just we'll continue a series. What you mentioned is very, very powerful, Annie, about this, your own identity. I think every human,
Yes.
yeah,
Mm.
that's a bullseye. Wait a sec, I have a thing here. Just a sec, watch.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Evolving.
So, yeah, and that is what I felt when I first was introduced to the Greenland people, was that there was a need for this identity of who they really are. And of course, the beauty is it's right there in front of your nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there.
They already got it. They're already beautiful.
We already hope.
Yeah. Just get
And-
connected.
It's all connected, and it's for everyone. It's for everyone. And the more you share,
Yes.
the more you share
It's
it,
pure.
it's pure.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed everything. Thank you
Yeah,
so
it was
much.
beautiful,
Thank
Patti.
you for the input.
Patti Jo, beautiful,
Yes.
wonderful.
Oh, thank you for the invite. Oh my goodness. You brought me in and welcomed me, and thank you. I loved it. I love you guys. I love you, Harry, and I love this way
Let's see.
to get connected. I just love it.
We'll see. We'll see what we'll do for series 3.
Mm.
And but I think a continuation. There's still a lot more. We have broken the ice, but there is even deeper feelings. As you mentioned, Annie, it's a circle. It's always evolving, growing.
Mhm.
And four babies are going to come out and see where we go.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna press. See you next time.